Pledge of Allegiance by our Teacher of the Year, April Sneed.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you so much. We're going to have a moment of silence, please. Okay, Dr. Sullivan, would you like to welcome our two guests that we have?
Yeah, we can go ahead and do we want to do recognition? Or
Oh, you want to do recognition first? We can certainly
let's
do
go ahead
that.
and do our approval consent, and then we'll get into that one.
Okay.
Sound good?
Okay. So approval of the agenda. I'll entertain a motion.
Move to approve.
Thank you, Ms. Bratton. Thank you, Ms. Maxwell. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed or wish to abstain? Approval of the agenda passes. Number 5.
All right, the approval of consent agenda, there's two things I want to bring to your attention. One of them, we had a question around one of the bids. Let me find where that was. So under C, nepotism. So we have added one person under nepotism because otherwise this person would not be able to start. And looking at that second one, Amber Campbell, 5.5-hour cafeteria employee. They have a relative who is a custodian in the building, but if we waited till the next one, it'd be 3 weeks later till the person, so I added that one today. The other one is under request to purchase. You'll see Rutherford County Board of Education request to piggyback Hamilton County. I gave you a handout. We are just asking to use Hamilton County's bid. We only purchase a couple of these, and they'll all come to you for individual purchase as part of next year's budget, but this keeps us from having to bid it out if these are approved in the budget.
Any other comments or questions? I'll take a motion on the consent agenda.
Move to approve.
Thank you, Ms. Rosales. Do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Young. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed or wish to abstain? The consent agenda passes.
Our next recognition, we have several things to recognize. One, we have a member from Franklin Special School Board here to evaluate our board, so we thank you for being here, sir. And then we also have, we have Patrick Wade, who is the new Tennessee College of Applied Technology for Tennessee Murfreesboro, who is here just to kind of show support. We've met with him several times to increase our partnerships with Rutherford County Schools and TCAP Murfreesboro. So, and Kevin Townsell, that's your name, correct? So thank you, Mr. Townsell, for being here to support us. And then our recognition, we want to recognize April Sneed. She's been up here several times for different things for Whitworth Buchanan for being Reward School, Model School. The County Commission recognized her last week, but we wanted to make sure we took our opportunity as a school board as well. Congratulations to April Sneed, principal for Whitworth Buchanan Middle School, on being named the Middle Tennessee Division Principal of the Year by the Tennessee Department of Education. We, as a district, have one Principal of the Year of our 51 campuses. Then each county, so we select that one, and then there are 9 core regions in Tennessee. Our core region is the largest, Mid-Cumberland. It is Rutherford, Williamson, Metro, Franklin Special, all of basically Middle Tennessee. She was selected as that area Principal of the Year, and then she was also selected as the Middle Tennessee Grand Division, which includes all of Middle Tennessee plus the Chattanooga area. So huge congratulations to Ms. Sneed and all her work at Whitworth Buchanan Middle School. You want to speak for us again? I'm just joking. You totally don't have to.
Now's your chance. So we have one visitor today. It's going to be Allison Brown. Come up to the microphone. You've got 3 minutes. Thank you for coming.
Good evening. My name is Allison Brown. I've been a contractor since 2015. For some reason, I did my contract up until Tuesday, the 17th, which I was called in the office by Miss Wanda Burnett and also Mr. Trey Lee. And I was told not to run my route. I mean, just all of a sudden, not to run my route. And I'm thinking, why is this like, But anyway, to make a long story short, that afternoon, Miss Wanda Burnett, as I was instructed by Mr. Lee not to run the route, Miss Wanda wanted me to run the route, and also they were trying to take the route from me. I've been, like I said, running the route since the start of the school year. And I would like to ask you all to continue that route, not for just me, but for parents calling, the children. I mean, we set a bond together. And I think I hate to say it, but I think it's something personal. And if it's something personal, I mean, I'm a grown woman, Ms. Barnett's grown, we could sit down and we could talk about it. But to just call me in a meeting, all of a sudden, no notice, and end my route, I think that's wrong. But anyway, I would like to ask, I have a bus, because I think that was an issue. I have a bus that has been run, like I said, all school year. And I would like the opportunity to continue to run my bus as other buses. I mean, it's a shortage in everything, school bus drivers, everything. Let's work together. Let's get it done. Not just take something. The only chaos came is when Tuesday, when I was told not to do my route. Everybody's calling. The teachers are calling. The parents are calling. Nobody knows nothing other than what Miss Wanda Burnett got on the two-way amongst all 300 plus bus drivers and said that I abandoned my route, which is not true. I did not abandon my route. Why would I abandon my route? But like I said, I have a bus that's in place. Everything was fixed until Tuesday. But I just ask that you all take in consideration and allow me to continue my route. And that's all I have.
Thank you, Ms. Brown, for your comments. Number 8.
Number 8, Instruction Tab 2. So I'm going to ask Dr. Bullard to come up as well. She has some information that she is going to share as well. So as I read this, so adoption of charter school performance framework. Pursuant to Tennessee Code Annotated 49-13-143, if a chartering authority has not adopted a performance framework for all of its schools, it must adopt a performance framework aligned to the Tennessee Department of Education's model performance framework for charter schools. The RCS performance framework is aligned to both the state model and the framework used by the Tennessee Public Charter Commission. It also reflects updates that will be made to the state framework later this year. Recommended approval, motion to adopt the RCS charter school performance framework is presented. Just to give you, I've asked Dr. Bullard to be here to present just a little bit because we haven't talked about, this being our first charter school we're authorizing, the board does have accountability standards to make sure that the charter school is performing as needed, just like as a traditional school, we as a district have it, and the school board does as well. So I asked her to kind of go over a little bit of that.
Thank you. Good evening again, board. So I'm just going to spend a few minutes talking about the accountability, both from the State Department of Education and for us as a board and as a school district, as well as the accountability standards for the charter school, leading into your vote on their contract this evening. So just to highlight a couple of key terms, some of this information will look really familiar to those of you that were here last year through that review process. But just a reminder that you all serve as the authorizer as the Board of Education, and that includes the responsibilities that you have for approving the school, but also for everything that happens after approval, including renewing or revoking their charter and holding them accountable. Authorizing is the entire process that we go through. So while you are the authorizer, part of my work is to support that and to actually do that legwork of the accountability piece. The governing body for the charter school is separate from our board, so they do have their own board as a reminder. And then, of course, the charter agreement does encompass the performance framework. So these are the purposes of a charter school outlined in Tennessee Code Annotated. And again, this is something that was presented last year and just something we'll consider again as we go through the review process in this coming application cycle. All right, so the state board adopted quality authorizing standards about 4.5 years ago, and these standards come from a national framework, and this is what we as a district and as a school board are going to be evaluated on every other year once Springs and Power Academy is actually open. I just want to highlight the fact that across these three domains of maintaining high standards, upholding school autonomy, and protecting student and public interest, there's an accountability piece in every single one of those. Both that we are holding the school accountable and that we are serving and being accountable for the actions of the school to some extent. So this kind of outlines the relationship between the State Board of Education, our district, and you as a board, and then the charter school. So the Board of Education and authorizing staff are held accountable by the Tennessee State Board of Education through authorizer evaluation. Again, those evaluations will start once Springs is actually open, and they'll be based on those quality authorizing standards. The state will publish a report letting everyone in the state know how we are doing as an authorizer. So we want to make sure not only for that accountability piece and communication with our community, but also you'll see that the authorizer fee, the $35,000 a year that we'll receive from Empower once they're open, is dependent upon successful performance on their accountability framework. Now, we as the authorizer are also responsible for holding the charter school accountable, and that's using that performance framework that you are looking at adopting this evening. From there, we see that there is per pupil funding that's going to flow from us to the charter school. And again, that's based on this new TISA model, so we'll be back at some point to talk about how that impacts their contract. And then a reminder again that accountability is we are holding the charter school accountable, and then of course the charter school and their governing board is who holds their executive director and school staff accountable. All right, so I mentioned that authorizer evaluation. There are 5 main domains in that authorizer evaluation. I'd be happy to sit down at any point with you guys, talk about what those look like. Mr. Tidwell is a member of the charter committee. He and I sat down and looked at some of this yesterday, but I'm happy to answer any questions or to sit down with you and talk about the authorizer evaluation that will start, we presume, in 2025. All right, and then a reminder of the performance framework that you're getting ready to adopt. So this ensures that they are complying with any applicable laws, and we agree that the most critical thing in the performance framework is the academic component. So there are 3 sections in the performance framework. There's academics, operations, and financial, but the academics is really the point that we want to hinge on when we make decisions about whether the charter school should continue to operate in Rutherford County. So this is a sample of the academic framework. This is the overall pieces that you are looking at for holding the school accountable for academics. So you'll see that TVOS and student outcomes measured through TCAP are a huge component. 10% is their mission-specific goal. They've chosen to focus on iReady scores for that. And then 40% is comparative performance to our district. When we authorize a school, we expect them to perform as well as, or ideally better than we perform as a district. So that's part of the expectation in the framework. The second piece is financial performance. So we will receive their audits and we'll be responsible for ensuring that they're in good financial standing and supporting them through that piece. And then finally, you have operations. So that includes teacher retention, chronic absenteeism, their governing body, protecting the rights of special populations, following those laws. So these are all things that we will be holding that school accountable for. That kind of concludes my overview, and I'd be happy to take any questions at this point.
I have a question. Do we have a projected opening date for this school?
Yeah, that's a great question. So they're kind of going through the same process that you all are right now with geotesting. They have 2 potential sites in the Smyrna area and are actually expecting to get the results of that back this week and then make a decision within the next week or 2 about whether they'll be able to open for the upcoming year. They can, under the state law, decide to delay for a year, and that is something they could just inform us of. So we'll definitely come to that mutual agreement and inform you guys shortly.
And to follow up with that, do we know what grades they'll be offering when they do open?
Yes, so their original application was for K-8. They have since asked to amend to K-5 to make it more practical to open and then scale up each year by 1 grade level. And so that is the way that their contract is presented this evening. Is K-5.
And my third question is, how many seats will be allotted for the K through 5th?
So I believe it's in the agreement in front of you, but I believe it's approximately 125 the first year.
Okay. And what are the projections the following year?
It would increase by 1 class size each year until they're able to scale up.
Okay. Thank you.
Could you speak a little bit to the conversation you had about the cost to Rutherford County for that oversight?
Absolutely. So as I mentioned before, we do get that authorizer fee of 3% or $35,000 a year, whichever is less. So we do expect it to be $35,000. And that will pay for some of the cost of oversight, but ultimately what we know is, especially as being a small authorizer with only one school, there are a lot of departments that are going to have to collaborate throughout this office to ensure that we're actually holding the school accountable. So we will incur additional costs when we think about the personnel that's required to do that. Mr. Tidwell asked me to reach out to another small authorizer, so I've spoken with Knox County and how they're keeping an hour log of their employees and how much time they contribute to authorizing. I plan to do the exact same thing, and I'd be happy to share the information about Knox County with all of you.
Yeah, that'd be great if you can share that information with us.
This is the performance framework from the state, correct?
This is based on the state's model. So the state does plan to make some changes this year. The Charter Commission has already made those changes. Those are up for a vote this week. But we wanted to go ahead and model it after what we know is coming down the pipe. Are there any other questions?
Any other questions or comments? Do you want to stay for, does she need to stay for part two?
Just in case, yeah.
Okay.
I've read the motion, we can go ahead and get it.
Okay, so I'll entertain a motion.
Move to approve.
Second.
Thank you, thank you. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion passes for the adoption of the Charter School Performance Framework. Number two.
All right, number 2, charter agreement with Springs Public Schools Tennessee Empower Academy in accordance with Board Policy 1.902. An agreement has been drafted between Rutherford County Schools and Springs Public Schools Tennessee Empower Academy. The purpose of this agreement is to articulate the rights and responsibilities of each party regarding school autonomy, funding, administration and oversight, outcomes, and more. The agreement will be effective for 10 years unless it's otherwise amended or revoked per board policy. The exhibits of this agreement include the RCS Performance Framework, a pre-opening checklist detailing the school's responsibilities prior to their first year serving students, and a list of approved waivers from the Tennessee Department of Education. The charter application, which was previously approved by the school board, can be viewed in its entirety in the school board meeting agenda from July 18th, 2022. Recommended approval, motion to approve the charter agreement and all exhibits contained therein with Springs Public Schools Tennessee Empower Academy is presented.
Any questions or comments? I'll entertain a motion.
I move.
Thank you, Ms. Maxwell.
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Rosales. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Anyone opposed or wish to abstain? Motion passes for the charter agreement with Spring Schools. Thank you, Dr. Bullard.
All right, number 9, special education. We talked about this at our work session. This is just adding 2 positions. That was the intent to add them in December, but it wasn't worded that way, so we're going back and adding these 2. Special Education Department requests 2 additional physical therapist positions under direct supervision of our special education coordinator. These physical therapist positions are currently being moved to Rutherford County Schools from previously being funded through a private contractor. These additional positions will allow us to have better coverage across the district and will be funded through IDEA Part B funds. Recommended approval, motion to approve 2 additional physical therapy positions funded through IDEA Part B funds for the 22-23 school year is presented.
Any questions or comments? I'll entertain a motion.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Thank you, Ms. Maxwell.
I second.
Thank you, Ms. Bratton. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone wish to abstain or oppose? Motion passes for the Special Education Department, 2 additional physical therapists.
All right, thank you. Tab 3. So first is out-of-county transfer student, and this is number 1 in your manila folder. The board has been requested to admit a transfer student from another school system under discipline. The student was expelled for possession of illegal drugs. According to policy 6.318, the board may deny admissions of any student except those in state custody when a student transfers from another school system while under suspension or expulsion. Director of Schools' recommendation is to deny admission. Recommended approval, motion to admit or deny the admission for this out-of-county transfer student as presented.
Any questions? I'll entertain a motion.
I move to deny.
Thank you, Ms. Darby. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Tidwell. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed or wish to abstain? Motion passes to deny admission. Number 2.
All right, number 2, out-of-county transfer student number 2. the board has been requested to admit a transfer student from another school system under discipline. Student was sent to alternative school for continued violations of school rules. According to policy 6.318, the board may deny admissions of any student except those in state custody when a student transfers from another school system while under suspension or expulsion. Director of Schools' recommendations to deny admission. Recommended approval, motion to admit or deny the admission for this out-of-county transfer student as presented.
Any comments? Questions? Thank you, Ms. Ridley, for preparing us. I'll entertain a motion.
Recommend to deny.
Thank you, Ms. Bratton. Is there a second? Thank you, Mr. Young. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed or wish to abstain? Motion passes to deny admission. Number 11.
All right, number 11, Facilities and Construction, tab 4, First Transportation. Allison Brown's been the contractor of bus number 61 for the Rutherford County Board of Education since 7/6/2015. Bus 61 has not been running the route awarded. Per section 8.4, in the event of a material breach of this contract, the board may immediately suspend this contract. Contractor shall be immediately resolve the material breach to the satisfaction of the board. In the event of a breach of this contract by contractor, the board may within its sole discretion terminate the contract by giving 30 days notice. The board's failure to terminate the contract upon breach shall not constitute a waiver of the board's right to terminate for subsequent violations or failure to adequately fulfill the contract obligations. No breach of this contract on the part of a breaching party shall be deemed material unless the party claiming such breach shall be given the other party written notice of the breach, and said party shall fail to cure the breach within 30 days after receipt of such notice. Allison Brown's received a 30-day written notice of this breach of contract. Allison Brown's failed to adequately fulfill the contract obligations. Recommended approval, motion to approve the contract for bus 61, Allison Brown, terminated effective 1/20/23 as presented.
Any questions or comments?
Yeah, so, so the lady that spoke, that this is, okay, so
Correct.
this is the first time, so when we were working on this on Tuesday, we didn't have anyone come speak about this, but since someone came to speak in regards to this issue, I am requesting that we table this for me personally, I would like to ask questions to understand, the issue so that I can feel very confident about the vote for termination after hearing Allison speak. So I make a motion to table this and bring it back the next meeting.
Can we ask questions of Mr. Lee now?
I don't feel comfortable asking those questions. And
Is there a second for the motion on the floor?
I'd like to table as well. Yes, I'll second that.
Can we do a roll call, please? And this is to table or postpone.
yes,
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
No.
Yes.
No. Motion passes to table. Thank you.
That'll be back on the February, is that 9th? Is that
yeah, or there's
February,
6.
it's February,
6.
yep, okay.
Number 2.
All right, number 2, land update. We discussed the Beatty property on Tuesday night, testing progress and due diligence. Anything for comment, suggestion? Mr. Reed, I don't know if you want to provide any information as well on this. Mr. Lee, do you have something? Okay.
I do. I've been I would like board approval to go ahead and authorize SEC to do the soil study. Reached out to them. They're already on our list of approved professional service providers. They've provided this service for us numerous times. Mr. Jamie Reed, fee of $5,000 to perform the testing, and he can have an answer back to us by the end of February, which meets our deadline. So I would like to get approval from the board to move forward with that tonight.
Just so we understand, that is for a separate testing for
Sewer services.
Sewer services.
Suitability of the soils, and also recommendation on the size of the design that would be, how many acres we would need to fulfill having our own sewer system on the Beatty
So
property.
that's for our own step system?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Any questions? I'll entertain a motion for Mr. Lee.
I move to approve the testing of the soil for sewer.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed or wish to abstain? Motion passes. Thank you, Mr. Lee.
All right, anything else on the Beatty property the board would like to discuss? Okay. Next, we have the Veterans Parkway property updated for proposed cost and engineering layout feasibility. Again, we looked at this possible land on Tuesday at our work session.
I do, and I'm not looking for a motion tonight, but I have been in contact with the owner. They have they need to put in place an agreement to lease their property out for farming again this year. And this is not a commitment on our part, because even I think if we move, this would not be something we would be utilizing this year. So I'm going to tell them that there's possible interest but for them to go ahead and sign whatever agreements they need to for their crops for this year.
Any comments on that? Any questions?
Am I correct that you said they were interested at 82 an acre? Was that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
So I have a question, just in feedback from the board. So we're getting updates from the Veterans property, and we also got an update on the Smyrna property. And so no action has been taken for, well, the Smyrna property was in a different board meeting. And so I just want to understand what are we wanting to do with these properties, since we've got information from both. We've gotten information from the owner that he's willing to sell at $82,000 per acre. And so is that something that we're wanting to entertain? Because if we table this to another meeting, the likelihood of this being on the table to sell may be gone if that is what we're entertaining. So I'm curious to know from the board, asking, what are we asking for updates if we're just getting updates and then moving after that?
I think the understanding was that we were primarily waiting for the study to come back to see what the recommendations were on rezoning, where we're best to look for new schools and things like that before we made any further decisions beyond the Beatty property, was my understanding.
Well, the study's not going to come back till May, and we're in January, and we're in discussions right now with the owner. No offense or anything, but we're leaving the owner kind of limbo if we're going to them right now in January, and we're not going to make a decision till May.
But that's why he's asking us to allow them to lease purchase that land. Allow someone to lease that land. It's just like hunting or farming. They lease it because we're not ready to buy.
Well, then why we're getting land updates if we're not serious
Because we
about-
have to look at the lands and the things that are available around here.
Some of this land is not going to be available to us.
And
by the
that's,
time we
we'll
come
have
back.
to, deal with that when that time gets here. But we can't hold up the property owner from doing anything with the land until we're ready to move on it. So that's what we're doing.
Right, I understand.
Is it a one-year lease? Did they mention anything about the term limits of the lease?
It's the farmland like that is typically year to year.
I understand that, but I think for me is if we're going to the owners to go to talk about pricing, it's almost as if we're giving them the thought that we are serious about entertaining going into negotiations and actually going into some kind of contract. So if we're not ready to make those decisions right now in January and we're waiting for the study in May, then I don't know personally if it's a good time, well worth the Trayley's time and even Jeffrey's time to go to the owners to talk about something that we're not going to make a decision until May if we're waiting for that.
I think it's more of just, and I could be wrong, Trey could correct me on this, but I think it's more of just an interest to see what's available and see what options we do have if anything were to fall through in different areas. Plus, we're going to eventually need it, so it's more just informational.
We're being proactive.
Yeah.
Well, we're running the risk because it may not be here by the time we actually
We
make
don't
a
have the
decision.
money now. We don't have the money.
Right, but we're going and entertaining with owners if we don't have the money.
But I don't think that we went to them and said, we're going to buy this, how much do you
No.
want for it? I think in the middle of conversations, they mentioned what they would be interested in selling it for.
I'm not saying that we went to them to say that we were buying, but we're going to them as
Okay.
given the
Point of
impression
order. Point of
that
order.
we're wanting to buy something when we're not ready for
Point
it.
of order. Number 3, please.
Number 3, 5-year building program discussion and direction. There's a couple, you guys had the 5-year building plan proposal 1 and 2. When we bring this up in February for an official vote to bring to Health and Ed, there's a couple things I do want to bring to your attention. The difference on proposal number 1 and proposal number 2, if you look at, I made an error on one of the dates for Laverne High School. Laverne High School in proposal number 1 involves an addition, and that doesn't involve a renovation. It involves some renovation, but not an extensive renovation. So that is a 2-year project, August of 26. for that.
That on one,
Yes, sorry, proposal.
on one, okay.
Yeah, if you look on year 2,
It's
it's
an
got Laverne
addition.
High.
Anything about
That is an addition, and that's why you've got the 43 million cost. The proposal number 2 has Laverne High renovation, and that would be more of a 1-year project cost, hopefully, and that should be August of 25 in the best case scenario. So when I was copying that over, and you see that's about a 12 million compared to the 43, and so that should be August of 25
For Laverne on the option
for the
2.
renovation, yes. And the board, at your discretion, you can move items around however you want to, add different items. These were just our proposals for what to look at based on where we get feedback from.
Are we voting on this evening, or?
No, the
Just
board can do is
discussion?
it's just discussion. I would ask that we vote on this by the next time so that Health and Ed has time, and really our full county commission has time to take it between all their different areas and go to the bond market potentially.
I knew there was a timing concern, so I wasn't sure if the.
So the 6th.
And we can change this and do a blend.
Absolutely.
We've got right now.
Absolutely.
Because I see some things I'd like to blend.
Yep. I would imagine this will change to some degree, at least the timing of it, once we get our study back.
Okay.
Need for schools, I don't think is going to change. We're going to need the schools, but how we move things around, I think our zoning study will probably help some of that.
This is the stake in the ground. This is the starting point.
I do have one thing I'd like to ask, if it's okay with you all. I would like to see if Jeff Reed could, after we heard what we did Tuesday about the holdup for Riverdale and Oakland regarding some of the things that the city is requiring of us, if Jeff Reed could go and talk with Mr. Huddleston and see if perhaps he could smooth over some points and maybe work some magic and get some of these requirements maybe lessened or come to some understanding. Does that sound okay with the board, with y'all's approval? Could you do that, sir, for us? Okay.
Do we have to make a motion for that?
No.
Okay.
One thing I would like for the board to consider, these are some hefty price tags here for our budget. We've never asked for this amount of money that I can recall for 1 year. We're normally in the range of $50 to $60 million. I think a few times when we do high schools, we've had to ask for $80 million. But $193 million on this option 1, which is the option I would prefer. Let's be realistic, it's not going to happen. So we have got to get creative here and look at some way that we can spread this out as far as the funding. And I would recommend that we look at funding half of this project for the additions, and not all the amount, and spread it out over a 2-year period. So,
It was my understanding that really our credit card was 137 million, and that was pretty much our debt limit. Is that correct? So whatever the 137 million is going to fund, it may be 2 annexes, it may be all 3 of them.
we got an elementary school that needs to be built before anything, in my opinion.
I'm also concerned still that there's nothing on here in terms of going towards some of our older buildings. I mean, even if it's not on there for the first year, it's not on here at all, and I think that's something as a board we should probably address and see how we need to work that into these figures. I don't want to go back to county commission after we've asked for something and then say we need more because something at one of our older schools is failing because we have failed to address the fact that they're aging buildings and needing attention, potentially.
The way this is set up is, both of these proposals, each one is just to try to help us deal with the growth. I mean, it's not really set up as what you've mentioned, but that is certainly something that we should be looking at.
Well, that's what we're getting the study that we've been waiting for May to see how this aligns with the study. Because I would think that the study that we're spending money will bring this up and give us a timeline of what the priorities are, because we're paying a consultant to forget the amount of money, a consultant to look into it. And I would think that part of the deliverables is a timeline of what this comprehensive thing looks like. So, everyone talks about May, so.
Number 4, Dr. Sullivan.
All right, so number 4 is the CMTA ESPC funding request. As I mentioned Tuesday, I would recommend that we table this. It needs to have approval from, one, we need to see the contracts, 3 different options. We've asked for a 10-year, 15-year, and a 20-year. We will get probably all 3 of those approved by the comptroller's office, or asked to have all 3. If they're approved, then we'll bring all 3 of them to the board for your discussion. I do have concerns that even though it may not be a funding situation the county has to fund, we do have to have a resolution for their approval. I do worry that they may see this as a way to go to the bond market. Even though it's not a way to go to the bond market, it's still in some ways leasing things, and I know they've had some discussion about leasing cars. However, I don't necessarily see another option for us to fund some of our projects. So it's not a great scenario. I just don't know another way to fund some of the $40 and $50 million in projects that we need.
And we've already lost 3 basis points on borrowing the money.
When did you say you would expect to have that information back?
I would hope by our next board meeting, but it depends. We're waiting on their contract, and then I don't know how quickly the comptroller's going to turn around. We got our initial response back yesterday from them on some things that they need us to fill out.
But we could table it till next meeting, and then if we
Absolutely,
still
and
don't
then
have it,
table it
one
again.
more time?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
Also,
Is that okay with
request that
everyone?
we would have our attorneys look at this contract, if they haven't ever looked at it.
Yep, will do.
Absolutely. We need to get our attorney to look into it.
Is everyone okay with tabling?
Yeah.
I need to take a roll vote? Okay. Number 12.
All right, number 12, Financial Matters, tab 5. Centralized Cafeteria Fund Budget Amendment, Fund 143. This fiscal year 22-23 Centralized Cafeteria Fund amendments to increase equipment and supply line items due to prior year encumbrances becoming actual expenditures in the current fiscal year. It also amends these lines to cover higher costs for equipment replacement and supplies. A portion of this amendment was prior year obligated money that rolled into the fund balance is being allocated to respective line items to cover prior year obligations that are now current year actual expenditures. Recommended approval, motion to approve the fiscal year 22-23 Fund 143 budget amendment of $850,000 decrease in fund balance and $850,000 increase in expenditures for the increased cost of supplies and equipment, as well as prior year obligations becoming current year expenditures in the centralized cafeteria fund as presented.
Questions or comments? I'll entertain a motion.
Move.
Thank you.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed or wish to abstain? Motion passes to approve the fiscal year 22-23 Fund 143 budget amendment.
All right, thank you, Board. Next, number 2, Fund 141 General Purpose School Budget Amendment. This budget amendment cleans up expenditure line items at mid-year. On the revenue side, the budget is amended to reflect collections of disproportionalities from IDEA federal funds. On the expenditure side, the larger items of this cleanup amendment reflect the higher cost and demand of custodial supplies, school maintenance supplies and parts, and instructional support supplies and materials. Also, adjustments to salary lines include additional approved positions not originally budgeted or transferring salaries to correct account numbers. This amendment has a net increase of both current year revenue and expenditures of $375,000 with no use of fund balance. Recommended approval, motion to amend Fund 141 to clean up revenue and expenditure line items for a net increase of $375,000 for both revenue and expenditure line items presented. As I mentioned, this is just a mid-year cleanup, and it has a net even for our budget.
Comments or questions? I'll entertain a motion.
A second.
Thank you, Ms. Maxwell, and thank you, Ms. Bratton. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed or wish to abstain? Motion passes to amend Fund 141. Thank you.
All right, financial report, that's pretty much what we just did on number 1 and number 2. The only thing that we would add is that our principals start their individual budget meetings with us again. That starts on Monday, so for the next 2 weeks, we have them in 45-minute increments over and over and over and over again. so they can present their budgets and we can at least show the board what principals have requested, because that has not necessarily been the case in the past. So you guys will see all of that.
Did you get that?
Yeah, that was in consent agenda. And then insurance update, Dr. Anthony, anything else from Tuesday? And then director's update, just a couple quick things. Of course, third grade retention is getting a lot of attention right now. There have been multiple bills that have been filed, but I imagine what will happen, I think the bill filing deadline, and Mr. Rosales may go over this as well during TLN, is in a couple weeks. And usually what will happen is they'll wait to see what all bills have been filed till they come up with a consensus of what to do. So we are watching that bill. Of course, next week is School Board Appreciation Week, and so our schools have done a great job supporting our school board, so we appreciate all that they have done to support our school board and appreciate the work that you guys do to support them each and every day. We are moving forward with our math adoption, and so our math adoption is scheduled to come to the board, I believe, in March. Is that right, Dr. Chastain? Beginning of March at the latest? Late February, so we are working through that process. And then just kind of looking around, we have Dr. Holman back here from Laverne Middle School. So I always like to call out our principals when they're here. So thank you for being here, Dr. Holman, and all you do for Laverne Middle School. That's all I have.
Thank you. Ms. Rosales, Tennessee Legislative.
Well, just want to remind the board that we're having that meeting with the Tennessee State Legislative Delegation next Thursday. I've talked to them a couple weeks ago, and I received confirmation from everyone except for one. So we're really looking forward to having the meeting with them, so.
And that is open to the public, correct? It will be here at the central office, right?
Mm-hmm. Correct, yeah?
All right, anything for Fed?
No, at this moment.
Thank you, general discussion?
I'd just like to say thank you to all of our schools for
Yes.
showering us with all of this. It was really unexpected, and I'm overwhelmed with gratitude. Thank you.
I will second that.
Yeah.
I
Yes, thank you.
will jump on that bandwagon any minute.
We're all-
Thank you so much.
We're all going to need a weight program after we.
Coordinated school health can maybe
Right,
work on
right.
that for board.
So the one thing that I have is on January 30th, we'll be having another Jazz Fest meeting. The community has really come together for our students. It really wasn't intended to be a Rutherford County school project, but it's kind of warped into that. And the community has, the response has been incredible. We're starting to get sponsorships from a lot of the businesses in the county. So any money that isn't used for the headliners will be coming to our fine arts department. Ms. Leslie Holman has been working on that with someone else, but anybody that wants to come to the meeting on 1:30, because there's several school board members there, so it's open to the public, it's not televised. It will be at the Chamber of Commerce on Medical Center Parkway at 5 o'clock on 1:30. That's Monday.
And I want to thank you for your leadership on that, because you guys you and Ms. Maxwell and a couple other board members, thank you guys. 'Cause
Yeah, it was just one of
you
the
got it
things that
moving,
we were like,
Ms. Darby, you got it moving.
we're going to do something, and I think it just needed someone to kind of head it up and start it, because it is a community event. Everyone wanted to do that. And of course, it's for our kids, so.
Are any of our band leaders, our band teachers involved in this endeavor?
I'm sure they are on the other side. We're just in the preliminary meeting
Okay.
right now, so I'm sure they are on the other side. But we did have a student show up to Monday's meeting. Shout out to Cody Wade from Smyrna High School. He has a trio and is also in the school band, but he's come to volunteer his help. So I'm just
Wow.
telling you, people from all over the county have come to.
They're very excited.
We're very excited.
Yes,
Thank you so
yes,
much.
we're very excited. And I did an interview today, and they said, "What are you going to have any of the other stuff that they had, like face painting and the different stuff?" And I said, "We're going to do the music and the headliners well. Beyond that, I don't know, but we've got to take care of our students, and then we're going to have the headliners." So.
The start.
Yes, we're going to start, but it is an interim. I'm also speaking through a third party with Live Notes to use that venue for 2 years from now, because this is an interim place, as well as help our students with some lessons and some other things, and perhaps graduation or something else at that venue. So we're also working on that as well. So thank everybody for this week. Oh, we are going to February 6th. Several of us are going to Kentucky. Mr. Lee has been tapped as the leader. So we're going to look at some of the schools that Ms. Rosales and I visited in November. So three different model schools, an elementary, middle, and a high school. So that, the press will know that. It's open to the public if somebody wants to follow us. I can't imagine that they would want to, but we are going to do that. So anything else? Anyone?
The 6th is also the night of the Mental Health Forum, so Ms. Rosales and I will be driving separately so we can hurry back for that. So I'd like to see all the families that want to come to Blackman High School that night.
Thanks for mentioning that, Ms. Maxwell. I think we'll be back in time, but I completely understand. Yeah, ask Ms. Rosales, how about the trips back and how we're delayed sometimes coming back from Kentucky. So if no one is opposed, we are adjourned.